Hey, Moneymakers, welcome to another episode of Taking Stock Live. I'm your host, Kalila Enriquez Reynolds, and we're going to bring you another amazing show. We're doing things a little bit different tonight. So, in our segment one, we usually have a guest, but tonight you are my guest because we have a lot to talk about. I've been seeing the conversations on Twitter, the comments on Instagram, the comments on, have I seen it on TikTok? I'm not sure. But there's been a big discussion over the past couple of days about market manipulation, the role of journalists in reporting on the stock exchange, and a whole lot has been said. I definitely have a lot of thoughts about that, and I want to hear your thoughts. So tonight we're going to be having an open discussion about, all of these things and more. So you, the audience, are going to be playing a pivotal role in our show this evening. We're having a discussion. It's you and I together. You are part of the show. You make the show what it is. And then, of course, later we have the analysts standing by to discuss the latest market developments as well. But first, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and let me know what you are thinking about. Let me know, of course, where you're joining us from, what part of the country, or what part of the world. I'm in Belize tonight, and I'm going to be here for the next few weeks. So, taking stock live all the way from Belize for the summer. And it's my pleasure to be here. Like I said, let me know what part of Jamaica or what part of the world you are in. Now, here's a look at what's hot in business. And when we come back, we will be starting our discussion. So, get those comments ready. Tropical Battery says investors in its recent secondary offer will receive the full amount of shares they applied for. Before the offer closed on July 4, NCB Capital Markets and Sagicor Investments both adjusted their recommendations for the company's secondary offer. Tropical was trying to raise almost 2 billion Jamaican dollars to pay down some of its debts and improve profitability. The company's statement did not indicate how much it raised, but did imply that the offer was not upsized. Pulse Investment says it will be transforming its Villa Ronai property into a 5-star resort. The property was initially set to become a residential development. According to Pulse, the shift is designed to accelerate revenue and enhance the property's value. The transformation is being led by veteran hotelier Dimitri Kozvagiannis, who joined the management team earlier this year. Managing Director Safia Cooper has said that Pulse was in transition mode as the company recovers from the sudden loss of founder Kingsley Cooper last year. More than 100 journalists and media workers were let go last week after telecoms giant Digicel announced it was scrapping the media arm of its business. The company said it was shutting down Loop News and Sportsmax as part of its strategic shift away from consumer-facing media. Digicel said it will be focusing on the more scalable technology and cybersecurity industry. The Loop News website was shut down immediately, while Sportsmax will broadcast for the last time on August 8. That's what's hot in business, brought to you by Jamaica Money Market Brokers. JMMB, your best interest at heart. And our referral link should be in the comments as well for you to open your JMMB Emma account. Let's take a quick break and come back with our main discussion. 12 months. That's all it takes to transform your finances with Money Mission Premium. For the next year, I'll guide you on the process to take your finances to the next level. You'll get my premium courses, monthly mentorship, and a great community of peers to help you on your journey. Go to moneymissionja.com. Let's get this money. Welcome back. Welcome back. Let me see who is joining us this week. Who do we have in the comments? Rob says, no, wish I could be in the show tonight. Nothing wrong with exploiting market inefficiencies. Rob, you are in the show tonight because you guys are part of the show. I really want you to weigh in on everything that we're going to be talking about. So, Rob, get your typing fingers ready because I want to hear from you. Garfield says, good night, Moneymaker. Spanish Town in the house. We've got Kish saying good night to the Moneymakers. Warrell as well. We also have Colette checking in from Kingston. She says, let's get this money. Humble Boss is in the grill. Christopher is saying, let's get this moolah. Antoinette is in Arizona. Orville checking in from Spanish Town. 1-1 Cocoa investor coming in from Toronto says, good evening, money makers. Evening with Seka Sun. Hot. Yes. Trust me, here in Belmopan, Belize, ooh, it is blazing hot for real. Malik is, where's Malik? Checking in from Massachusetts. Tavares says, bless up. Pink says, great topic. Love how your ears are on the ground. Sheldon can't get used to the background, the virtual background, Sheldon. Do you want to see my, no, I won't show you. There's just too much going on behind me. The virtual background for now. Roswell is saying, good evening. Looking forward to hearing from the viewers. Shell says, back from my vacation. What's been happening? Shells, you are about to find out. Ryan says, lots of people lose off of David. All right, so I'm going to take that comment. I'm going to come back to this comment soon. Troyan, Dr. Lithium is outside. Rick is in Brooklyn. So all of our international viewers, all our viewers in the United States, US, Canada, the UK, remember that you can send money to Jamaica easily and affordably with little to no fees by using Tap Tap Send. So you have lower no fees, you have fast transfers, and it is very reliable. And you can download that app from the App Store in the US, UK, or Canada and use my promo code Kalila10 for $10 on your first money transfer. So if you're sending $100, they're going to get 110. All you got to do is type in the code Kalila10. And just to remind you that you have to be in one of those markets in order to be able to download Tap Tap Send in the App Store. Because some of you are messaging me, you're like, it doesn't work, Kalila, it now work. And I'm like, where are you? I'm in Spanish Town. Well, I said US, UK, and Canada. It only works in those eligible markets. So yeah, download Tap Tap Send, send money to your family and friends back home quickly, reliably, safely, and get an extra $10 on your first money transfer with the code Kalila10. All right, on to our main discussion for the evening. There's been a lot of debate these past few days about this article in R Today, and I'm gonna actually bring it up. So let me share my screen. I think we should start there by sharing my screen and reading the actual article for those of you who need to come up to speed and understand what's been going on. The subject of the article is our very own taking stock analyst, David Rose. And so you can imagine that this caught me very much off guard when I saw this article, I think at a Sunday evening or early yesterday morning, and then seeing all the conversation that's been happening around it. So the very headline says, listed companies suffer from David Rose's baneful kiss. And I'm like, okay, let's read the article. This article was posted on the website R Today. So it says, last week there was much consternation as NCB Financial Group's share price sank as low as 32 Jamaican dollars. It must have been unsettling for the management team, staff, and shareholders. The share price has fallen from a high of $210 in 2019, and for the best part of the last month has hovered in the $40 range. Then came a number of damning articles from Trinidad, which caused panic. Is Michael Leachin still able to maintain control of NCB? Is NCB in a position to raise $300 million on the international capital markets? Why is NCB in such turmoil? Plenty gloated, some gleefully awaited the coup de grace. Then came the news that NCB's share price had sunk to as low as $32 when it was hovering above $40 a few days ago. Some said it was a good time to buy. Others said it could lead to a run on the bank and shake confidence in the country's largest financial institution. Remember, we discussed this on this very show last week with David as well. Jamaica Stock Exchange listed companies' fortunes are not as determined as other bourses are by historicals and other pertinent information. The volumes traded are invariably low, and activity is characterized as illiquid. It is easy for one person to come in and move the market substantially with individual trading activity. The liquidity of the JSE has long concerned former Group CEO of Grace Kennedy, Don Webby, and he sees it as a shortcoming of Caribbean exchanges. Liquidity is still a big issue for the JSE. The delisting of Grace Kennedy from the Barbados Stock Exchange has nothing to do with Barbados or its economy. It has more to do with the liquidity of the various exchanges in the Caribbean. For over 15 years now, I've been calling for one Caribbean stock exchange because I believe it can increase the market capitalization of all listed companies in the Caribbean. What we found in Barbados was the liquidity was very low and it did not make sense to continue to list. And he goes on making that point about Caribbean Stock Exchange. Then the article continues, this year has not been a good one for Jamaican equities and investors have been taking hits. It is heartening to see more young people looking to grow wealth via the stock market. It bodes well for the future. Now here we go, the subject of the article. With NCB under siege and detractors quick to talk about its vulnerabilities, the journalist David Rose decided to trade NCB stock and brought the price down with just 2 shares. His trading activity triggered the circuit breaker, which saw the stock plummet to $32. He traded a total of 60 shares, playing around with the equivalent $15 and came out on the losing end. Taking to social media, they describe him as the currency determiner of millennials and Gen Zs, David Rose wrote after his trading in NCB shares. Now, I don't know that these two things are correlated. They are making a connection. A stone was flung with no target, yet a hog sealed. Actually, I won't read the rest of this. We're all spectators at this point because I don't know that these two things are actually correlated, that David was even referring to that when he made that particular tweet. And then they continue, who could David be talking about? Perhaps he was irked by his trading activity not yielding a fortune, but he could hardly have expected more than the cost of 2 KFC big deal meals. Perhaps David's trading activity and its impact on NCB share price were merely a simple twist of fate. Maybe he was unaware that he would be NCB's succubus. And then it goes on to make some allegations that David is the one who actually caused NCB's share price to plummet to $32. Now, let me say, I have spoken to David, not at length. David has informed me that he is consulting his attorneys at this point and taking advice. So he's not coming on the show tonight. He wasn't scheduled to be on the show tonight anyway, but he's not making a comment just yet, right? But there's a lot that has been said, and you guys can read the rest of the article for yourself if you are interested. But the main allegation is that there has been market manipulation, especially as it relates to NCB's share price. A lot of things are said in this article accusing David of being personally responsible for where NCB's share price is today. And it also goes so far as to make connections between David and the share price of other companies and other brokers claiming that they have fallen victim to things that David has published about them. And it also goes so far as to say, as to reveal David's supposed trading history and getting into details as to how much he paid for shares, the accounts that he used, the number of shares that were purchased, and making a connection or a supposed connection between what was done and what his possible motivations were. And then the article raises some issues about journalism ethics, which is ironic given that this very article raises questions about journalism ethics itself, the publication of the details in this very article. And at first I had an initial reaction, which is quite similar to what I saw many people expressing online as well. And I had to take some time to think about it and reflect, which is what I typically do, rather than to just put out something and react out of frustration or anger or whatever the moment is telling me to say. So I did a little consultation as well. I've been monitoring the comments on social media, seeing what people are saying. I am pleased to see that the vast majority of people are lobbying around David and saying, how dare his personal trading information be revealed, and whether that was an ethical thing to do. I have since gotten some information, because that was one of my major concerns as well. How do you put somebody's personal information out there? How do you reveal private information, private trades by a private individual? How do you even come by this information as a media house? And I do understand that as a media house, as a journalist, you will get leaks. I have gotten information leaked to me many, many times in the past. I have even won awards on the basis of information that's been leaked. So how a media house comes about particular information is really neither here nor there. The impact of it, however, is something to be concerned about. And also thinking about the laws. So I'm not necessarily going to fault R Today for publishing the information, but I do question how they got this information and the ethics of the people who provided this information, because I was under the belief that such information, such trading history, ought to be confidential. And upon reading the article, it gives the impression that this information was revealed by the brokerage or brokerages with whom David holds the accounts, because I cannot see how that information would be publicly available. Now, an argument has been posited that indeed the shareholding of listed companies is public information. And so whatever shares I own is therefore public information. Whatever shares you own is therefore public information, because whoever owns companies, that is public information. But I have countered, well, if it's public, where do I go to find it? If it's supposed to be public, is there a website I can log into and see all the shareholders, every single shareholder of every single company on the stock exchange? I don't know that that is publicly available, even though technically it is supposed to be public information. It being public information legally is one thing, but it being publicly available and easily widely accessible is another thing. I don't know that that information, even though legally it ought to be public, so to speak, according to my sources, I don't know that it is easily and readily publicly available or accessible. And so therefore, I don't know that that information could be accessed by anybody at any time, which means that for our today to have gotten access to that information, it would have had to be leaked by somebody who has knowledge of that information, which I believe, and I don't know, I'm not an attorney, and perhaps an attorney can weigh in here, ought to have been confidential information. Now, like I said, I spoke to David briefly yesterday. David says he's tired today, he's had a long day. And I can completely understand that and understand his position of taking legal advice before putting out any statement. But I am concerned about the breach of trust between client and broker, especially in a post-SSL era in which trust between client and broker is already perhaps at an all-time low, especially in an era where people are increasingly afraid of doing this type of business, of investing in stocks. Every single time, every single post I post on social media, somebody comments, so Usain Bolt getting money back yet? I'm not investing, I'm saving my money under my bed. So investor confidence has taken a severe hit in the past couple of days. And to have your personal information leaked to the media does nothing to help restore investor confidence. As a matter of fact, it does the opposite. It proves that my information is not safe. If you deem that I'm doing something that you're not happy with, you can just leak my information to the press. And so there is that aspect of it. What about all the data protection laws that we have been so keen to promote over the past couple of years? There's always some webinar or seminar about the brand new Data Protection Act and what institutions can do with client data and all of these things. And so what about that? Where does that come into play? Who can comment on that? Who are the data protection experts? Does a broker have an obligation to keep their clients' information private? Or is it, legally speaking, fair game for anybody's trades to be made public? Because, legally speaking, or technically speaking, the ownership of public companies is public information. I'd love to know what you guys think about all of this. I hear my phone blowing up. Let me see if these are messages that I need to take. And I also want to read some of your comments as well. So, all right, so I'm getting a comment from somebody, and since you're watching the show, this person who sent me this WhatsApp, let me know if I can call your name. I don't know if you want me to. I won't unless you tell me to. But this person is somebody who works in the industry, who says shareholder actual trades aren't public, as you said. Top 100 shareholders at a month-end time period is available to persons that want to purchase, but actual trading info is private. And that's what I suspected. This would come from the JCSD, JSE, and what we call the registrar. And this info has to be requested directly from the exec of the listed company or corporate secretary. All right, which is what I suspected. Yes, the top 100 are available. You can go online and find them, but for individual trades, that info is still private. Somebody else is making the argument to me that it is public, that you can find it. I have been searching. I have not found a way where that is easily accessible to the public. This person who works at a brokerage and has extensive information in the field is saying that actually you would have to request it directly from the exec of the listed company or the corporate secretary. But reading that article, and like I said, you can go ahead and read it for yourself, because I don't want to get into any trouble repeating any of the things that were said about David. But it does give the impression that the brokers themselves, or broker, him or herself, revealed that information about these particular trades. And so what do you think about this information being public or private? Should it be publicly available? Should it be private? And then there's a bunch of other issues as well, but let me start taking some of your comments, because the comment section is blowing up, and this is what we said we were going to do. I said that this was going to be a conversation between myself and you guys. All right, let's see, lots of comments here. All right, so Ryan says, lots of people lose off of David Rose. Journalists need to disclose any interest they have in the stocks they are writing about. Troyan says, first thing is to define manipulation. Manipulating stock prices, buying stocks at a higher or lower price is not a bad thing. They do it in the US all the time. Pink Stoicism says, while Stoicism says learn to be indifferent to what makes no difference, that's Marcus Aurelius, what happened this week requires strong, swift action from several persons. Which several persons? I would think the FSC would be one that needs to be involved. And then the data protection authorities, whoever is in charge there. Shell says people expect journalists to report an investment but not do their own investments. And I saw that here. Shell said they will have to ban journalists from investing altogether. Investing is a private issue. They shouldn't need to disclose how they are investing. Now, one thing David has always said is that he invests in every company on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. He has said that repeatedly, that he is an investor. He doesn't hide the fact that he's an investor, and he always says he invests in every single company. And so from the time that he's reporting on it, you ought to know that he invests in that company because he invests in every single company on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. But what level of disclosure is appropriate? The allegation here, and I saw some other allegations from he who shall not be named on Twitter as well, making the case or claiming that, and let me try to choose my words very wisely here, that things that David has done have had a direct impact on happenings that he then reported on without making it known that it was his action that caused the thing that he was then later reporting on. And so I feel like, yes, there is an obligation to disclose when your direct actions result in the story, when your actions become the story. So yes, I do think that there is an obligation to disclose in that matter, and let me tell you, journalists becoming part of the story themselves is not unheard of. It happens. It is a different style of journalism. Uh, I have done it before, reported on things that I was directly involved in. But yes, the disclosure in that instance becomes important. So if indeed it was David's very actions that triggered the circuit breaker and caused NCB stock price to $32, and if that is something that he knowingly did and then later reported on it, I do think that he would have had a responsibility to disclose that, to say, I was the one who did this, and look how easy it was, even if it was just to prove a point, just to say, I deliberately did this action to prove a point that it can be done, and to prove how easy it is to manipulate stocks on the market. If indeed that is what he did, then I believe that he should have disclosed that. He should have said it and made that point in his article that this is what I did, this was the effect, and this proves XYZ point, and the authorities need to fix this issue, or whatever it is that he was trying to prove. I don't know for a fact that that is something that he did intentionally. I don't know for a fact that he was even aware that his two trades, as the article alleges, are what triggered the circuit breaker or what caused NCP stock price to fall to $32. What I can say is that NCP's stock price has been falling for the past 5-6 years, since 2019, since that high of $210 before COVID. And two trades by one journalist are not responsible for that demise or that extreme crash in NCB's share price over the course of the past 6 years. And so to blame one person for what has happened to NCB stock, given all the other circumstances over the past 6 years, I think is disingenuous and unfair. Well, let me take some more comments before I continue. So what else do we have? LBW says, all that's needed is a comment at the end of all financial articles. This writer invests in equity and could be a shareholder in the company. Why? Supervillain says, David is disingenuous. Okay, we already read that one. Ryan says, David should have said in his article that he was the one who halted down the stock. If he was aware that it was him who did it, I would agree with you. But there is a possibility that he wasn't aware that he did it, but he didn't know that it was his trade that caused the stock to halt. LBW says, Don Webber used to complain that GK's share prices do not properly reflect the results of the company. Shells wants to know, how do they know it is David that traded it? Did he post it on social media? No, he did not post it on social media. And so, yes, that becomes one of the questions. How did they know? This information clearly was leaked, apparently was leaked, and that brings into question the ethics of the broker-client relationship. LBW says, I've seen many shares halt up and down with as little as selling small amounts of shares. And that's an issue. So Don Webby in the article was complaining about, the number of shares, the liquidity of trading, the liquidity of stocks on certain markets. He was referring to the Barbados Stock Exchange, but it happens here on the Jamaica Stock Exchange as well. It's very, very small trades. And we've spoken about it on this show, because we look at volumes traded and we can see sometimes that very, very small quantities can have a tremendous impact both ways, by the way. So today we're talking about, did what David do result in this stock coming down to $32? But we have seen this happen the other way as well. So if you want to talk about market manipulation, let's talk about it the other way as well. Because we have seen some instances where there are some stocks, and I'm not going to call any names, that have been trading way higher than where they're supposed to be trading. And why is that? Nobody wants to talk about insider trading, but it happens every single day on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. There are people with insider knowledge who make certain trades with the information they have, and there are no consequences. And there's no way to track it, to monitor it, even though technically there's supposed to be laws against it. It happens every single day. There are some instances that come immediately to mind where you say, how come all of a sudden this stock price gone up by X amount? And then a few days later, you hear an announcement about what this company is doing. And you're like, oh, okay, somebody had some information. But nobody wants to talk about that. When it comes to David, you want to make him the scapegoat. Okay, I get it. Venja says the issue isn't that he's doing his own investments, it's him doing it at the expense of people and their money or livelihood. 1-1 Coco Investor says this type of essay written by a journalist, if you may call him that, is definitely intimidation. In the end, talking about how it's a warning, trying to destroy the bright young man's future. Rob says the key to market manipulation is intent. So what was the intent behind these things? What was the intent behind halting NCB shares or stock price to $32? What is the intent behind inflating certain stocks prices? What is the intent? Making a few people rich? Or in this case, what is it? What would have been the intent behind bringing NCB's price to $32? What is the implied intention? Just to hurt NCB's reputation? It's already been hurt. 6 years this has been going on. NCB stock price did not go from $210 to $32 overnight. It was not the result of two simple trades. That happened over 6 years. Think Stoicism says, I would like to know if the Data Protection Act doesn't work in the investment arena. I'm very concerned. Someone from the JSE needs to speak publicly. It does apply to the investment arena. I've been to enough of these seminars and workshops. I've even hosted a couple of them to know that once you have client data, that the Data Protection Act applies. And so, yes, we need to hear from these authorities about this, what appears to be a breach. I can only assume because David hasn't said so publicly yet. Ian says, good night from Toronto. Rob says, if my investment strategy is for a stock to fall, I will do so using the tools at hand. That includes triggering a circuit breaker. And then this also brings to light the other issue that I've seen people commenting on the past couple of days. We still don't have short selling. So what's the intention behind purposefully bringing a stock price down when you can't even really benefit from it in that way? Short selling has been promised since at least 2019 as well. That's when I really started covering the market seriously. And around that time is when I heard the promise, and it still has not been introduced. And perhaps it is because the market is so easy to manipulate, as has been proven. Well, let me not say proven because I don't know that it was manipulation, but the market is so volatile or so easy to move. And perhaps that's why they haven't introduced short selling, because the liquidity on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, the volumes traded are not enough. And two simple trades can hypothetically um, result in what we have seen the past couple of days. 11 Coco said, David alone trading 2 shares bought NCB to $30 from $240. That is laughable. LBW says, the problem is a market that's not used to someone who does in-depth investigations and comes to conclusions. Rob says, if 2 stocks result in a stock price falling to the ground, the problem is clearly the stock market. Pink Soicism says, writing an article does not a journalist make. People need to remember that. The article was terrible and raises concerns. Are you referring to the Hour Today article or one of David's articles? I assume you're referring to the Hour Today article. Venja says, I'm glad there was some accountability because he thought that no one would find out. Assuming that what you've read is true, Venja. Ryan says, so wait, you get leaks and question the ethics of people who give leaks? So I'm not sure. All right. The things that I've gotten leaks about in the past have not been on the business side. This has been in my pre-business reporting career, right? It has been on a lot of corruption, and some may argue that this is corruption. It has been on things that have to do with even national security. And so, no, so I would say that when a journalist gets a leak, right, the journalist has to question whether it is in the greater good or the public interest to report on the information that they have reported. Now, I don't necessarily fault the journalist for doing their job once they are able to verify the information that has been provided to them, which sometimes can be difficult because it's confidential information. But at the same time, yes, you may still question the ethics of the person who provided the leak, especially in the environment that we are in. Now, you as a journalist, you're going to run with it because that's your job, right? But you may still side eye the person who gave you the information because sometimes it comes from within the very camp that is, we do a lot of, I used to cover politics a lot, and you would get leaks from within the very camp of the person they are leaking the information about. And yes, you do side eye them. You'd be like, really no, but that's y'all's business, that's y'all's concern. You guys fight that out amongst yourselves. But yeah, you do sometimes look side eye at whoever provided that information to you. In this instance, it makes you question an entire system. So a political leak, I don't know that it's comparable to this, because a political leak, who does that harm? It harms, them within the party who is doing the infighting, for example, as opposed to a leak of this nature, where yes, it harms the person whose information was leaked, but it potentially also harms the entire system, because now we all are left to wonder, well, does that mean that our data is at risk of being leaked? Anybody can just put out our data. Is it really publicly available, as some are now alleging? So I don't know that the two things are comparable. So if you wonder why I'm taking my time, I have to read through these comments before I actually read them live. because I don't want to get into any trouble on this show. Roswell says, look, heavy trades went through, bring down NCPFG to where it is. That's more than $29 million. That's not a regular trade. David's journalism doesn't have much to do with that bearish move. What I can tell you is that David has made some powerful enemies. That much is obvious based on some of the people who have been weighing in as well. There are some powers that be who are rather disgruntled, but our good friend is taking his legal advice as he should, staying out of the spotlight for a few days, and we'll see, what happens next. Humble Boss says this article is just targeting a regular retail investor. I know that David is a regular retail investor. He's a retail investor. I wouldn't call him regular. Where the big boys with them cash to support a stock price from tanking, in my opinion, picking on a journalist is a low blow that need to get dealt with. Rob says you can only pay for the top 100 as far as I know. Pink Stoicism says my shares cannot be public information. And Rob, yes, the hottest part is the specific times noted about his trade. Seriously. Yeah, so there were very specific details. And so the implication that this is public information, I don't know that there is evidence to support that. LBW says the trade details are sent to all brokers, and the businessman said he gets the trades of his company daily. Okay. Lanesra says it's public to the higher powers. Venja says, I understand Khalila's position. David is close to her team, but seeing your share price drop further due to intentional manipulation is truly upsetting to a lot of people. How do you know there was intentional manipulation? Intentional being the key word here. No disrespect to journalists, but David is a very bright young man who can provide a lot more to Jamaica than be an argument with some 60-year-old Englishman. I didn't even realize the time. Wow, time is going. Okay, we need to move to our next segment. But let me take a few more comments before we move on to the next segment. Craners, what is being alleged is manipulation, which is very, very easy for a single trader to do in Jamaica, but one share each day driving the price to your desired low, then buy bulk at the new low. Natoya says, I was of the impression that only top 10 shareholders are required to be listed publicly. DK says, all who think their shareholdings are private have learned a valuable lesson. Cleaning Tricks says, if the top is listed, the top 100 and can and should be listed. Rob says one share trade cannot move a company's stock price. The price is determined by volume in addition to the prices those volumes traded at. So I'm trying to read some of the comments before read them in my mind before I read them publicly. Good question, Cleaning. Would the reaction be the same if it was manipulated to the highest price for the year? Great question. Because there have been stocks whose prices have been manipulated to higher prices. In my opinion, I'm not calling any name. I don't have the proof. I only have suspicions. Tavares says, thousands of people are investing and never read the associated laws involved with investing. Chairman says, whether he intentionally manipulated stock or not, if I were David, I would be looking for a new broker. David has several brokers, by the way, so which one it was, I don't even know. Roswell says, persons can sell off a stock as low as they want to, even if JSE wants to cancel those trades, no different from block trade when a company can get steep discount and we can't. And David, 11 Coco has your back. He says, you set up the GoFundMe, we will contribute, get a good lawyer. Kish says individual trades should be private. So yeah, the article raises a lot of issues and a lot of things that we as shareholders need clarity on, as shareholders and investors need clarity on, including one, the relationship between broker and their obligations as it relates to protecting client information. Two, should all trades be public information? Should all company ownership be public information? Is it already? And if so, where is this publicly available? Three, what is the role of the Data Protection Act and the Data Protection Officer in a case like this? And you can see your whole question there, but this has been a topic for the entire show so far. How do you feel about your trading history being public? I'm not even going to give you the options because we've been discussing it for the past 45 minutes thereabouts. How do you feel about this entire situation? But yeah, like I said, there are serious questions that need to be asked. I feel like the JSE should put out a statement about this. I feel like the FSC should put out a statement about this. I feel like the Data Protection Officer, the Office of Data Protection Commissioner, I don't even remember how that is framed, that they should have an interest in this case as well and ought to say something because it does raise serious concerns about protecting client data and whether we even have a right to such privacy. What are our expectations? Are we asking too much that our individual trades not be subject to public scrutiny? Is that a fair ask? Is that even a legal request? Uh, I feel like some clarity needs to be provided by the authorities that be as it relates to this particular situation. I see another message coming in. Let me check my phone. All right, understood, producer. Yeah. It's 8:54. I didn't realize I've been talking about this for so long, but you guys continue leaving your comments in the chat. Up next is your market recap, and we also have our analyst standing by. Our analyst is not talking about this issue. It's about a completely different issue, actually. We are talking about retirement in tonight's analyst section. And also, I'm going to have to bring you the market recap live myself. Let me find the market recap. So we're doing a live market recap tonight because we have been having some technical challenges today, given, like I said, we're doing the show live from Belize this week, and internet, I gotta tell you, is not the best. I'm grateful that we've held up tonight, that the show is running smoothly, and I haven't had any connectivity issues so far. But throughout today, it has not been so great. So it's time now for your market recap, brought to you by mymoneyja.com, the official data partner of Money Media. You can get 10% off your subscription with the code MONEYMISSION. So the JSE combined index lost 6,700 points last week. That's about 2%. 128 stocks traded across the main and junior markets for the week ending Friday, July 11, 2025. 43 made gains, 67 lost value, and 18 stayed the same. 88 million shares changed hands on the Jamaican dollar market, valued at $464 million. Want to know the week's most traded stock? It was actually Wigton, with 32 million shares changing hands. It started the week at 16 cents, sorry, at $1.16. Transjam traded the second most shares. It opened Monday at $3.63. And the contentious NCBFG rounded out last week's most traded stocks with about 4 million shares changing hands. NCB was also the week's third biggest loser, down 13%. Now let's see who had the biggest gains. JetCon was the JSE's top stock, up 25% to open the week at $2.10. Epley had the second biggest gain, up 15%, and G West Corporation rounded out the top stocks, up 12.5%. On the losing side, MFS Capital Partners was the week's biggest loser. The stock lost 19% to start the new week at 37 cents. And Cygnus Real Estate USD fell almost 17% to close out the week at 5 cents US. Over on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, the composite index was mostly flat last week. Republic Financial was the TTSE's most traded stock. It opened Monday at $112 TT. CIBC Caribbean Bank was the TTSE's top gainer, up 4%. And on the losing side, the newly listed Medcore fell 15% to open Monday at $40.80 TT. Over in the US, the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 were mostly flat last week, while the Nasdaq was up 0.5%. At the pumps, gas prices rose $2.94 last week, while diesel prices climbed $4.50. In foreign exchange trading, we're up to an average $161.20 Jamaican to purchase $1. That's as of last Friday, and that's 43 cents more than the week before, so the dollar is still slipping. One Canadian dollar cost an average $118.18 Jamaican, and one British pound cost $216.97 Jamaican. You could also buy €1 for $188.20 Jamaican on average. Finally, on the crypto markets, things are looking nice over there. Bitcoin prices surged to new heights over the past 5 days, trading at $120,777 on Monday. Meanwhile, Ethereum was up 9%, trading at $3,025 on Monday. That's your market recap, brought to you by mymoneyja.com. Use the code MONEYMISSION for 10% off your MyMoneyJA subscription. Let's take a quick break and come back with the analysts.
So, you've been supporting Taking Stock and my content all over social media for the past 5 years, and I can't thank you enough. Money Media has grown from just me in my living room with a cell phone to a full production team. And guess what? It takes time and money to bring you the quality show that you expect week after week. And we need your help to keep it going another 5 or even 50 years. Support us by subscribing to our Patreon at patreon.com/moneymediaja. The link is in the description.
This segment of Taking Stock, The Analyst, is brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart.
All right, welcome back. Let's get into our analyst discussion. Welcome back. So tonight's discussion is with Fund Sales and Service Manager at JMMB, Tanika Lawrence. Welcome, Tanika. Oh, we're twinning today.
Hi, Kalila. Thanks for having me. And good night to all the viewers.
So we're discussing a much less contentious issue than what we were just discussing before the break. Tonight we're looking at retirement, and you're going to be debunking 6 of the most common myths about retirement, Tanika. So what is one of the first ones? Tell us what are some of the more common myths that you hear about retirement.
All right. So there's a growing concern in Jamaica right now about old age poverty. And this is coming from data from the Financial Services Commission that states that only about 11% of Jamaica's labor force is covered under an approved pension arrangement. So the first myth that I want to debunk here is that when you get to retirement age, it means that you'll be spending less money, which is a common one that we get all the time.
Okay.
No, this is a common misconception. So just because you're not working anymore, and yes, some financial obligations may be reduced, but a lot of studies show that healthcare is a little bit more expensive in your retirement years. So you have to be mindful of that when you're planning for retirement, right? And especially if you have pre-existing health conditions, you have to plan for those in advance to make sure that your health coverage is going to take care of those expenses. Another one that we find that often gets overlooked is the inflation rate when you're planning for retirement. And that can cause you to spend more as well because cost of living is going up. Food is more expensive. Bills are more expensive in general when inflation goes up as well. So you have to be mindful that when you're saving, especially for something as long-term as retirement, a goal as long-term as retirement, your investment return should outpace the inflation rate to protect the purchasing power of your retirement income. And the third thing that I'm going to share with you as well on this point here is taxes, which a lot of persons don't know that your pension income is taxable, and you have to factor that into your retirement planning as well to make sure that you are accounting for that in your income. Now, yes, pensioners do have a higher tax exemption threshold, but when you look at it on a long-term perspective, you don't want to be taken or caught off guard when it comes to your retirement income because taxes are coming out. So you have to be mindful that taxes may increase over time, and you have to factor that into your projection as well.
Right. So yes, that is a very common misconception that, okay, you're retired, so you have to spend less money. But like you said, you have to factor in inflation. The cost of living is going to go up. But the reality is that, well, you may have less money to spend. So there's also that. So how do you compensate for the fact that you have less money to spend, but the cost of living is going up?
And that is creating a robust retirement plan with multiple income sources. So you're not just depending on one income source at retirement, but it's building out a portfolio that's going to combat inflation rate because you have long-term performing investments, again, that's giving you returns above inflation to keep your retirement income at a steady growing rate.
Right. So let's look at the second myth. What is that?
Now, the second myth, and this one is it's a fantasy, is that I can work for as long as I need to. Now, while that would be awesome, it's out of our control. In Jamaica, life expectancy is 75 years old. Normal retirement age is 65 years old. So that's 10 years that you need to plan for steady income without employment. So when you think about retirement planning, anything can happen. And studies have shown as well that many retirees end up retiring much sooner than they would have planned to or expected to. So it's good to ensure that you have a plan in place for your retirement. It's better to have the plan and not need it than to need it and not have a retirement plan.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like that who said they're just going to work till they're dead. That's going to work because they like work. I mean, nothing wrong with that. But life is what happens when you're busy making other plans, right? Illness
Definitely.
happen, forcing you to retire early, or something else, some other circumstance may happen. What's myth number 3?
Myth number 3 is that NIS and insurance plans will cover all my retirement needs. And we often underestimate how much income we'll actually need at retirement age, and this can lead to pension poverty. Now, the minimum NIS in Jamaica currently is about $4,620 per week. Now, if you add up your living expenses for the week, ask yourself, is that enough to take care of me? And
It's not enough to take care of me, for sure.
it's not enough. It's not enough. So we already know that you cannot just depend on the national insurance scheme. And if 11% of our working population is only covered or not covered on an approved pension arrangement, it means that, only 11% is covered under an approved pension arrangement. It means that more persons will be depending on the NIS for a steady income. So we don't want to be a part of that majority that's not prepared. It's better to start planning early so that you can take advantage of tax-free benefits under the approved pension arrangement and also the compounding interest effect on long-term investments for your retirement.
Okay. Myth number 4.
So myth number 4, you can retire. You have to retire at age 65. So that's your myth number 4 here. And this is a common one because normal retirement age in Jamaica is 65 years old, but according to the Pensions Act 2004, you can retire 10 years prior to normal retirement age and up to 5 years after your normal retirement age, which means that depending on your plan, you can retire as early as age 50 or age 55. So you don't have to retire at age 65. You have the flexibility to retire early.
Yeah, especially if you're in the private sector. or later. It doesn't have to be at 65. You can work until later as well.
Exactly. And for those persons who want to retire before age 50, that is where your other investments come in. So you're building out your portfolio to give you income at each stage in life. And this is where you can now develop your own retirement plan, design a retirement plan that's going to be giving you our salary placement as early as age 40, 45, whatever age you want to retire. You can customize your retirement plan to make those provisions.
All right. What's myth number 5?
So myth number 5, you do not need a financial advisor for retirement planning. No, retirement planning can be complex. There's a lot to consider, and we would have gone through some earlier as well. So it's always best to get financial advice, expert financial advice when you're planning for retirement. A financial advisor can help you to design a retirement strategy that's going to get you to your goal and to also save you from making costly mistakes when it comes to retirement planning. And financial advice is free, so take advantage of it. Get help from the experts. It comes at no additional cost, and it can really benefit you in the long run.
So let's reach out over at JMMB.
Reach out to your JMMB representative. Exactly.
Myth number 6 is what?
Myth number 6, it's too late to start saving for retirement. It's never too late to start saving for retirement.
Even if you're already retired?
Even if you're already retired, you can always boost that retirement income that you're getting. So while yes, time is an advantage, so the more time you have, the better off you are because you can then maximize on the returns. But even if you're close to retirement age, a financial advisor can help you to structure your plan to ensure that you're making the best decisions for a long-term financial growth and maximizing that retirement income as well. So it's never too late to start planning for your retirement.
We have a few comments and a few questions for you, Tanika. So let me see. Learn, Grow, Invest says, I think pensions are managed in an interesting way. Would love to understand it better. I may not know as much as I should. Some mature take. Johnson says, re-pensions, a lot of persons don't realize that the more you give to your pension, less taxes you pay. Sadly, public sector workers can't give more than 5% of their salary. Explain that for us, Tanika, that relationship between pension and the taxes that you pay.
All right. So under the Pensions Act, you can contribute up to a maximum of 20% of your gross annual salary tax-free. Now, if you're under a plan, for instance, a company plan, that plan may have certain rules that state your maximum because the employer also makes a contribution on your behalf. Your employer's contribution is also a part of your 20% tax exemption under your pension contributions. So it's important to understand the plan rules. Now, if you find that your contribution plus your employer's contribution is putting you at your maximum 20% tax exemption, then you can also look at unit trust investments that also give you a tax advantage to boost your retirement income.
Great. So yes, try to put in the maximum as much as you can. Oh, what's this? Love the way it's presented in myths. Yes. Lots of retirement myths out there. Thank you so much, Tanika, for explaining that for us and bringing us up to speed on retirement. And how can people contact you for more information?
So you can reach out to us at pensions at JMMB pensions at jmmb.com or 998-5662, which is 998 JMMB.
All right. And we have Ricardo making a point. Central government workers can't contribute more than 5%, but other public sector workers like himself can go right up to the 20%. He says we contribute 15 and the employer does the mandatory 5%. There we go. Thank you so much, Tanika.
All right. Thanks for having me again and enjoy the rest of your night, guys.
You too. All right, we're going to take our final break and come back with some more comments. There's one in particular I want to mention.
This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, was brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interests at heart.
Graduating is a huge milestone, but what comes next? Whether you're job hunting, starting a business, or heading back to school, your finances will shape your next chapter. The Money Mission Workbook gives you the tools to make smart money moves from day one. To the link in my bio to get it. Let's get this money.
So Shell says, no question for the analyst, just advertised pitch. Well, I did ask a couple of questions, Shells, and I was looking for questions from you guys. I saw comments more so than questions. If you had a question, you should let me know in the chat so I could have asked it, you know. Few more comments I am going to take. Where is the one that I wanted to highlight? And it was one actually from Learn, Grow, Invest. Well, here's one regarding the retirement discussion. NB Lee says, I understand that a number of companies do not keep you on their health plan or for only a specified time, or put you on a reduced health plan after retirement when you probably need it the most. Yeah, that's one concern. Here it is. Here's the comment I was looking for. So Learn, Grow, Invest says, I will say David has helped a lot of persons get insights and learn how to invest for years. It's interesting how many question his character after all he has done for the space. And I'm going to say that is it. That is the comment. You guys see him on here week in and week out, doing the research, writing the articles, volunteering service, making his comments on Twitter, participating oftentimes for free in investor education, helping people, answering their questions. It wasn't long ago we were talking about on the show about nominating David for some sort of national award, and then how the tables have turned and everybody's so quick to now judge and say, you know, all these negative things about him. But I'll leave him to speak his piece when he is ready. I have said what I feel about the whole situation, including, yes, there is, I would say, a responsibility to disclose when you are directly involved in something that happens regarding the market. I will say that much, that yes, as a journalist, there is a responsibility to disclose that information. But there are other factors at play here that are way bigger than my pay grade and your pay grade. There are some big people involved, like I said, who are not very happy at this particular individual right now and are making their positions known and taking aim at this particular person, which I think is unfortunate. And there are also a lot of ethical questions that need to be raised, as well as things that need to be more clearly defined by the JSE, by the FSC, by the data protection authorities for the benefit of the public so that we can know what is what. Is my data safe? And do I even have a right to expect that my trades are my private trades and that nobody can just find it and put it on the internet for anybody to see? Is that a right that I have? As of right now, I really don't know that we have that right. And I think that that needs to be clarified, among other things. Market manipulation, did it occur? Has it occurred? I know it has occurred, or I can speculate that it has occurred many times in the past on both ends. For those who have been artificially inflating stock prices, and then on the other end, which is what we're discussing now as to whether this occurred and who is responsible, if anybody is responsible, prices falling to historic lows, or maybe not historic. NCB has been lower than $32 before. Not since it's been all the way up there, but when it was $10, $5, whatever. A lot of questions and a lot of clarity needs to be made, and it's unfortunate that so far we haven't really heard, and not just so far, in these types of incidents, we rarely hear from the authorities as to whether it is assuring the market and letting us know. The FSC, for example, post SSL, we haven't heard a whole lot about what are the investor protections that are in place. I remember Nigel Clark at the time coming out and saying, these are the steps that are going to be taken to protect investors. And then since then, I've heard nothing about whether any of these measures have actually been implemented and what standard companies are being held to when it comes to accounting. The only thing we have heard is that, well, companies are being suspended more frequently now, mostly because of the delay in posting financial returns. But regarding the other issues that came out as a result of SSL, we've heard very little. We've heard very few updates as to what these investor protections are. And it's something that we need to revisit. And this particular article and the issues that have been raised are things that authorities ought to address in a very public way sooner rather than later. And that's all I'm going to say on the matter for now, because clearly this is going to be a legal issue. There are going to be some precedents quite possibly set. But we're going to leave it there for now for this evening. I know you guys have a lot of opinions on the matter as well. So keep the comments coming. Let us know what you think. Reminding you to subscribe to this channel, share with a friend, follow me on all social media platforms at kalila.money. I'm at Kalila Money without the dot on Twitter. And on Instagram, we also have at Money Media JA. Can follow all of those pages. And remember, you can get access to all of our courses and materials at moneymissionja.com. The Money Mission workbook is also available on amazon.com as well as in Fontana pharmacies. So we want to help people learn more about money so we can all get this money together. If you want to connect with the analyst this week, check the description box below for her contact information. Now tell a friend about taking stock, because investing is the new sexy. So let's make it cool to talk about money. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Thanks for watching. See you next week.